think we'll start with that today. The ineffable. I've always liked that word, ineffable, because you never hear effing, do you? You know, effable. Things that are effable. And what we're talking about is the ineffable, or is ineffable. You can't know it. You can't find it. You can't have it. You can't hold it. And yet it's everything. It's not an it. It's effing ineffable. And so we're talking about something that you won't find. I mean, it's very funny. It's tragic. It's a tragicomedy, this non-duality shit that we're talking about. It is a tragicomedy because you can't help but look for it. There's apparently quite a lot of people, a lot of human beings speaking about this. So they must be speaking about something. Well, they're not. They're not speaking about something. They're speaking about nothing being everything. Nothing is everything. Everything is nothing. Nothing and everything are not two. That's what we're trying to talk about. Well, I say we, I am. You might try as well. I don't know if you have tried yet. Have you tried to communicate this to anyone? Have you had a go at this game of trying to talk about nothing?
Not really in English.
If you have had a go at it, you'll know that it usually, well, it's futile. You'll know that, and you'll know that it usually ends in laughter.
Well, Tim, I have a question.
Sorry, who's that? Art?
John Becerra.
John, hi, John.
Hi. My question is, and I'm trying to have a go at it, and I'm not, I'm still trying to put my hands around this nothingness.
Yeah.
Could you possibly say that these are two ends of like a magnet? Everything exists, but it originates from nothing.
Well, you could say that, John. You can say whatever you like.
Well,
but,
I'm trying to have a discussion.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, no.
Okay.
Because this is what we're talking about is so if we use the magnet analogy, then it's polar opposites, isn't it? Two poles, and that is the essence of duality. So, and that's how that whole sense of this and that, of black and white.
Well, I'm thinking more of a continuum, and maybe not opposite poles.
Okay.
In other words, the material world originates and is part of the absolute, and the absolute is nothing. So I used a bad analogy maybe, but they are the continuation. Everything started from nothing.
Okay.
And like an explosion, the material world is the outer fringes of nothingness. But then again, the trap is set, right? There's one or the other, but I'm saying they're connected. It's challenging to talk about, but I'm just trying to have a conversation.
What you've just expressed, John, is what I'd call pretty mainstream thinking. that
Okay.
that you know what we have, what appears to be the world and the universe, you know, real life, most people would call it, came from nothing, and from that nothing there was a big bang, and we are in the continuation of that big bang. Now that's pretty mainstream scientific thinking. Well, this message is saying this is the big bang. There is only this big bang. It didn't happen in the past. It's happening. It's happening. If you want,
I can hold on to that. Yeah.
and if you want, if we're using the Big Bang analogy, then this is it. This is it. This is the whole of the Big Bang. Is this? There isn't a before and an after. So, and the other thing that this message would refute, probably, it's not too strong a term, is the whole notion of continuation. Yeah, so there is no time, John.
I appreciate your
just the appearance.
clarity. Yeah, your clarity is excellent. I followed it. I can say yes, I agree. You know, but I guess I'm still on an intellectual level.
Well,
you know, but
the
it's
thing is,
okay. I'll get there.
Yeah, it's not. You won't get there, John. You won't get there. There's nowhere to get to. That's the most beautiful thing of this message is, by miles, the whole, the peace, the love, the rest, the ease of this message is that there is nowhere to get to. And even if there were somewhere to get to, there's no one to get there. Now you put those two things together, which are the two elements of duality, of what you'd say normal separate existence, is that there's me, I can get somewhere, and there's somewhere to get to. And somehow this message has come to tell you, well, you can forget all that shit. It's just a story to keep you alive in your journey of becoming and getting where you think you want to get to. You have no idea where you want to get to. And yet everyone is, nearly every human being you know will tell you of their path and their journey and where they've been and how they've struggled, you know, the amazing insights that they've had. How many people have you met who will bore you bloody rigid with their awakening stories, their tales of enlightenment, their tales of awakening? Is there anything more tedious? You know, and you know, they're expecting you to be wowed by it. And you just go, put the kettle on, make a cup of tea. For goodness sake. Stop with your stories. Let's just sit together. Anyway, not that it matters. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I'm just saying it's pretty boring.
Where does science come in, or it doesn't? How does medicine and health and these things? I'm being honest. You know,
I know. Well, science. Well, the thing is, this hasn't got anything to say about science, other than science is a way of explaining things in duality. So it's cause and effect. That's what science is about. It's explaining how things work. And if you explain how something works, you dissect it, you take it apart, and you then work out. You have the illusion that you know how it works. Nothing actually works. Everything is just spontaneously appearing. There's no working. This life doesn't work or not work. Life just is, and is doesn't.
I don't want
to. So this doesn't have anything to say about science. Then science is really interesting, and non-duality isn't refuting science. Science is a way of explaining how the world works.
Well, and again, I don't want to, if there's somebody else that has questions, please, but I do have, it's like all that we're saying about non-duality seems to be floating on top of duality. For example, this Zoom meeting, words, conversation, the science of electricity, eating, everything seems to be supporting this non-duality. Non-duality seems to be supporting non-duality, because if you have solely non-duality, there's no need to eat, there's no need to live, there's no, just sit, or I don't even, just, whatever. If you get what I'm trying to say.
I do. Yeah, because I remember thinking the same way, John. And because
Thank you.
I do, I remember it well. And what me says is, look, without me, which is what non-duality is saying, the essence of what the message is there isn't a you that's controlling your life and has free will and choice to manage. There isn't a manager of life inside the body called John Becerra. There just isn't. That's the whole message, really. And it isn't that duality is supporting non-duality or vice versa. It's saying there isn't two. There isn't duality and non-duality. Because this message isn't saying that there is only non-duality. It's saying this life, for want of a better word, we'll call it life instead of this. Life is unknowable. And duality is saying, I can know, I can find out, I can have knowledge, understanding, and that will bring me to what I desire. That's the illusion. There isn't desire's natural, but what me says is that I can make life in my image.
Well, it's extremely interesting. And I guess, there's, I don't even know how to, it's hard to even talk in terms of total non-duality, because yes, I think there's, there we go. Credence, I'm not there, but I want to say, listening to you, Tim, listening to other people that the word isn't got it, but are, experiencing non-duality, you can tell by what I say and the responses that come back from what I say, which is a beautiful thing. And it's like, wow, hey, there's something here. But the thing is I'm just chasing my tail, because it'll happen when it happens. If it happens, and it might not.
Well, nothing will happen, John.
Well, there you go.
Nothing happened here. I know.
Well, then there's somehow a dilemma.
Well, it is for the seeker. This is a complete dilemma for the one who wants to find. And I can't emphasize enough that Tim Cliss did not find what he was looking for. He so didn't. Because, right, number one, it was impossible for him to find what he was looking for, because he hadn't got a fucking clue what he was looking for. He had no idea. He had heard some stories, lots of beautiful stories about enlightenment and awakening and bliss and nirvana and God, how he yearned for some of that shit.
Bingo. So,
Now,
so what is your history?
this is
How
really,
did you,
I need to emphasize
how
this,
did you
John.
get there?
I did not get there.
Well, then something happened 5 days
Now,
ago.
some, so I, of course, as self, as me,
Yes.
I can only look for something else, something that I could achieve. Something will happen, and then I'll know. Because all we're really talking about that self wants is to know. Now, this is the exact opposite of that. It is not knowing. I do not know any more than I did when I was a seeker and I was looking. You could
Okay.
say there's knowing much less. Now that's not strictly true, because if you ask me for knowledge of the past, it can be found, there can be remembering, but it's seen as absolutely insignificant. And it's very obvious that knowledge and understanding will not get you any closer, will not bring this any closer, or bring me that I imagined I was closer to this. There is no closer. You can't be closer.
Well,
You can't be closer or further away, John.
I hear you, but listening to you and some other experiences that are the same, the thread, I use the word thread, that I hear common is that you were a sincere seeker.
Yeah.
You really wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I think, I know I do. I don't know.
God, I can't tell you how bad I wanted to know. Oh, it's off the scale.
Mine's just the natural, like a sponge. I just can't get enough of this
Yeah.
kind of, what is really going on, what's reality, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
and seeking. But,
yeah. Well, if I could, John, I'd take it all of that, I'd take your sponge and I'd incinerate it. If I could, I'd burn the lot, all of that knowledge,
I hear you.
all of that wisdom, all of that deep understanding, the depth, all of that shit that you've told yourself about how far you've come. If I could, I would destroy the lot. But and in a way, you could say that's what this message is. It's a destructive message, because because if there is a handicap to being this, which is all there is me's got to go. And what does me live on? I live on my knowledge and my power. And my knowledge is my power. My understanding is my power. That's what I rest on. That's what I live on. All of that. And my experience, of course. John, the other thing you said about, the other thing that you said was about experience. This has nothing to do with experience at all. Experience is just something else that happens for no one. So experience, we've, as seekers, we can so rest and feed ourselves on our experiences. I've had special experiences. There is nothing me likes more than my special experiences, as I started out with, and telling other people about how special they were. And I might listen to yours, but obviously yours won't be quite as special as mine. That kind of stuff. And you can listen to stories that people tell. And if one story sounds really attractive of, a speaker or a writer, you read it or you hear it on YouTube, and it sounds particularly attractive, well, of course, then you can make that human being very special and try and emulate them. And of course, that's even worse. Putting one human being on a pedestal as something special. This is the great leveler. This levels the whole world flat. There's no higher or lower. There are no human beings who know more of this than any others. This has no interest in your knowledge. It has no interest in knowledge at all. That's the love. That's the freedom, is in the absolute equality, which is emptiness. Because essentially all the things that we've taken as separate from me, separate from what I am, we make higher or lower than I am. All those judgments. Well, even judgments are laid flat. So I'm not saying that without me there won't be judgments, but they will be totally empty. They'll be of no value. You won't think, just because you judge something as preferable to something else, it won't make it better than something else. So I like I don't know, I like chicken more than steak. Doesn't make chicken better than steak. That's for all you vegetarians out there. I like apples more than oranges. Well, that doesn't make apples better than oranges, does it? But for me, it does. Now that, I'm trivializing it, but there is a great deal in that. Because what me says is what I like is better. What I dislike is, what I like is right, and what I don't like is wrong. And there we have all the conflict between human beings. All conflict with what is. There is only what is, and I am in conflict with it by saying one thing is better than another.
Well, here comes my unfortunate dualistic viewpoint, and I'm trying to get rid of it, but in our discussion here, there's a difference between the absolute and the relative. And the relative is all opinion, is, hey, I like this or I like that, whatever. That's relative. But then we get to the absolute, and that's unity. That's
And again, this message is very radical on that, John. It's really very clear that absolute and relative are not two.
Yeah.
What we call relative, you could say the thingness of life, the things relative to each other, me and you, relatively, is the absolute. Absolutely. So you could say life is absolutely relative and absolutely absolute.
Yes. Thank you for your insight in listening to me and understanding where I'm coming from.
You're welcome, John.
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. It's very it just, in the story of Tim Cliss's life, is a very it's yesterday that Tim was a desperate seeker. So when John speaks to me, or anyone else speaks to me about how it is when you're looking for what you don't know what you're looking for, but you're desperately looking for it, I remember that. That's not forgotten. The thing about this is that memory is just memory. You don't lose that. Because I remember the fear of going insane with this. When you feel me feels me slipping away, being dragged away, being killed, falling into nothing, dropping into the void, being groundless, having nothing to hold on to. All of those are analogies for the sense that when me feels at risk of, you could say, seeing your own unreality, seeing the illusories. If me gets a whiff that it might be found out. It's like getting found out. I reckon nearly every self has felt throughout its life at different periods, and to a greater or lesser extent, of this sense of getting found out, that I'm really a fraud. Okay, that, you know, if everyone knew really what was underneath, because we all, you know, self creates a persona, and that's always only a tiny fraction of the story that me is telling. You know, on the internal story, there's this sense of incompletion, a sense of not good enough, the sense of lack, the sense of wrongness. There's something inherently wrong with me. Well, and with that comes a great fear of potentially getting found out. Well, if this is only a story, by the way, all stories, it's all stories. You could say awakening or liberation is life finding you out. I don't think I've ever said that before, but it's not a bad analogy. You know, for want of a better word for what this is, what the hell this is, which you don't know, but we'll call this life. Life finds you out, and finds you out to be empty. That's it. Just like the rest of life, it's all empty, beautifully empty. And it's what me fears most, getting found out to not be real. That's what I mean by empty.
Every once in a while, I have that
John,
experience that it's all an illusion.
John,
Yes.
if you could just wait till I've finished and then just ask a question. Thanks, John.
Okay.
I don't know what I was going to say now. If I stop, that's it. It's gone. So my mum's next door. She repeats what I've just said and tells me what I've said. So has anyone? She'll come in for those of you who are only here to see my mum. I'm restricting a time slot today because she's been very grandiose. To be honest, she's got on my nerves a little bit. She's got very grandiose with the positive feedback that she's had from YouTube, from her previous cameos. Don't be daft, she says. Right. I've lost my thread now. So can anybody else would like to ask me? Sorry. Ask me.
You were
Yeah.
talking about life finding you out.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that before. Just yeah, it could be life. Oh, thanks. I quite like that. Life finds you out. Well, I don't know. There isn't, because it's wrong really, because there isn't something that finds you out. But if you want to know a bit of my my story, then it did feel like it was more than getting found out. It's more like life came to kill me. That was the finding out. And the killing was taking me to nothing, into emptiness, where there was no place for me. So that's what I mean by the finding out. The finding out that there isn't actually anything inside, Matthias. So Matt, the truth is, there is no truth, but I'm going to say it anyway. The truth is that you are empty inside and everything else is empty outside. And in the empty inside and empty outside, there is no inside and outside, because if everything is absolutely equal, you think of, you know, if you divided the ocean in two and then said one side of the ocean was inside and one was outside, well, it's just all ocean. It's just all water. And These are just analogies of trying to express that there isn't what we've taken to be a separate identity, a separate entity, a separate me here, and then there's everything else separate from me. That's complete illusion. There's nothing inside. Well, there is just no difference between inside and outside. It's exactly the same. And so if it's exactly the same, then there just isn't an inside and outside. It's not, if I'm really honest, it's no big deal. But to me, it's a fucking great big deal, because I have taken myself as something unique, special, powerful, in control or out of control, or, you know, separate from life. And then I possess a separate life. That's what I am. I am a separate life, separate from all of the rest of life. And what I desperately want to do is reconnect. I want to so connect with life. I want to be part of the big life. I want to love life. I want to just let me embrace it. Let me fall into it. Let me die into it. Well, you know, all beautiful ideas, but they're all for me. There isn't anyone to die to life. There isn't actually anything to fall into. And there isn't anyone to fall into it. Oh, thanks, Hans.
Hi, Tim. In the beginning, I thought that when I got enlightened, or the me dies, that everyone would love me, and and I see more and more that actually everyone hates me. You know.
Well, now, Herlof, it's not strictly true. I love you.
Yeah. But you know, I see more and more the crucifying of Jesus, and
absolutely.
You know,
well, there's a good precedent for that, isn't there? You know, the story of a guy from Nazareth a while back, 2000 or so years ago. If you come out with any of this stuff, you get crucified. You're sure to. This is the most threatening thing you could ever suggest to anybody else, Herlof. The threat is immense. You're threatening everyone else, every human being that loves you. You're threatening their existence by saying they don't exist. Of course they're going to rebel. Of course they're going to hate you. Of course they're full of fear. They're terrified. You've said they're nothing. They're not going to love you for that.
And the irony is I can't stop talking about it also.
Oh.
So I'm pissing many people here in Norway off.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'll end up with no friends at all, Herlof. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
And then hopefully the me dies.
Yeah, of course, maybe you've got to become so unpopular. Yeah. And so the suffering gets so great. Yeah. Oh dear. I'd like, but Herlof, all joking apart, this isn't going to make you more popular. No way. It's so not. Now, don't get me wrong. You'll make a few new weird friends. Hello, you guys. But you will lose a lot of your existing ones, for sure. Because if you go around saying, so what are you doing now? Well, I'm kind of into non-duality. And then you need to stop there, because then they're going to say, so what's that all about? And you're and don't begin to tell them. No, because more than once I was grabbed by the throat and had up against the wall when I'd been drinking, and it comes out. You know, you get a bit loose-lipped when you've had a few beers. And I would mention this to some of my mates, you know, who weren't ardent seekers. They were just interested in their, you know, the next car they were going to get, and the football results. So we could talk about that, and sex, of course. But those were the only three topics. Spirituality and awakening and enlightenment and liberation weren't on their agenda. So it's probably best I shut up. So I do get what Herloff's saying. If you're interested in your popularity, but the beauty of this, of course, is that this couldn't give a shit of what you're interested in. Because if this bites you, you're done for. You know, in the story, it could take any amount of time, seemingly, for you to die, but die you will. But then you were talking about an illusion dying, so of course there's no death. It's so beautifully paradoxical. So in the dying of you, there's no one dies. And another human being you love dies, no one dies. Now, again, you have to be careful who you say that to. Not everybody will appreciate that.
Tim, Benjamin has his hand up.
Where's Benjamin?
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Where's Ben?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Hi, Ben. Hi, Ben.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, fine.
Hey. Yeah, so I've heard a lot of your talks, and I've heard you say that, you know, you thought Tony had something that you didn't, and you were looking for that. And,
yeah.
you know, I've heard enough of these to sort of, to see that there isn't anything. And, you know, I've done my own searching all over the place. And, yeah, I get it. Then what?
No, that's a great question, Ben. Then what is a question? Now, there won't be an answer for that, Ben.
So there's still confusion. There's still yeah.
The only thing I could say for the then what is, there won't be a question of then what.
Right.
That's probably the only then what I could come up with of the difference. I don't know if that's worth anything, but there isn't a then what, because there isn't an after. Nothing comes after this. There's nothing to come.
Yeah.
So all I could say, Ben, is that question of then what just becomes mute. Mute is a good word. It becomes redundant. It's just not. That's a question. That is a question that me always wants to know. So that, yeah. So I get this. I understand this. Now what? Now what? Then what? Well, then what? Nothing. Then what? This.
Yeah.
Then what? Just what is. Then what? Just as this is, as it is. How is that? Well, it's exactly as it is. Could be anyhow. Any. Then what? Anything. Then what? Everything. The thing that me really wouldn't want about this is that there would be no motivation to follow that then what question. because the one that wanted to find out what would come next, what would be then, it's just he's laid down and he's snoozing somewhere. He's just taking a rest. He's not.
I find like with these non-duality videos, it's kind of like I've heard everything there is to hear.
Yeah.
And I don't know, why am I listening? I
Good
mean,
question.
I've heard it. There's nothing to get. There's no one.
No.
I mean, and I don't really understand why still. I think maybe I'm just bored and I'm just, but I can't seem to listen to anything else. It's just, you know, there are very few other sort of subjects that are interesting, and but then there's nothing new is really sort of said. It's
no,
just
there isn't
same,
anything. No,
same.
You only have to hear this message once, and you've got. Yeah, it won't get any deeper. I was always just probably doing what you're doing, Ben, which is you say you got it all, but of course me doesn't believe that. You don't believe that. You think there's a nugget about to be said that will just tip you over the edge into oblivion, and then you'll be there.
Maybe.
Well, maybe, yeah. But yeah, like you said, but there is I mean, I would still go and see Tony Parsons speak because I like it. There can be just liking this nonsense. I like it. I still enjoy it just for the enjoyment of it. It's free and full of love.
It's funny that I never used to read fiction, and I would only ever read non-fiction and sort of things about, you know, everything from sort of sociology, psychology, whatever, just kind of improvement stuff, but stuff that made sense of the world. And now I just can't listen to anything that's remotely sort of non-fiction claiming to be something true, I suppose. You know, even the news sometimes now, it's just, it's really difficult. And it's funny, I've actually started to enjoy fiction for like the first time since I was a kid, maybe, because it just, and that's what this is almost. That is great.
That's great. And that's really familiar to me, Ben. I remember that. It's very similar. I never read any non-fiction. Now, if I did read anything, it would only be fiction.
Yeah. Yeah, because it feels like all the non-fiction is fiction anyway.
Exactly, because when it's really obvious that everything's a story, why not read a good story rather than some really dry, boring scientific story?
Yeah, and you don't sort of have that sort of missionary zeal.
No, it's so true.
Presented with.
Yeah, I mean, there's liberation just in that, isn't there? Because you were reading, because you only wanted to know the truth. That's the real burden of me. I mean, self is a bastard like that. Just so wants to know because it thinks knowledge will bring it what it wants, bring it to fullness, to fruition, to completion. And it's such a bollock story that me tells itself. You know, that through knowledge, I will become complete. I'll find what I'm looking for. I have no idea what I'm looking for, but I will find it the more by learning. Yeah. Whereas fiction, of course, Ben, is just pure entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're speaking about: enjoying life, the joy of life. And me is a killer of that. Self's a killjoy. There you go. Self is such a killjoy. Because if you just think about one aspect of self, which is a great killjoy, which is self-consciousness. Self-consciousness is just awful. And really, that's what we're talking about. I mean, self-consciousness is self. I'm conscious of myself. I am self-aware. It's funny, we've got these two things which are about knowing self. One is taken as a real negative, self-consciousness, and the other one is taken as a real positive, self-awareness.
Well, you know, if I'm honest with you, I think one of the reasons probably the big reason I got involved in the search in the first place into, you know, meditation, all the other stuff,
Yeah.
you know, some sort of therapies and all that, was to actually to sort of combat self-consciousness, because I
Yes.
found myself just being completely aware of myself all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'm being honest, actually, I've looked to this to some kind of cure for that.
Yeah. Well,
Not
it's
work.
yeah, it's a it's a pretty tough cure. Yeah.
Kill the self.
You know, non-existence is a pretty hefty cure, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
you know, it's a bullet to the head.
Mm.
But yeah, self-consciousness. What a bastard that is. Mm. That alone makes this worth talking about. That self that you are conscious of, that plagues, that totally dominates life for you, is completely illusory, is a non-existent fiction. There you go. The most convincing, elaborate fiction, a story. Don't get me wrong, it feels more than a story. It feels very real.
Mm.
It's just not at all. There's nothing there.
And it's the feeling of just not being able to relax with it. It's always sort of on guard all the time, you know.
Yeah, and of course, you know, you can do work. You can do work to help that, to ease the pain of being self-conscious, and you can ease the other anxiety. Which anxiety is, of course, that's extreme self-consciousness, isn't it? That's just fear for me, fear for myself. Yeah.
Tim, may I just add to that, please?
Hi, Mala.
Hi.
Say that again.
Please, may I just add to your conversation with Benjamin? There is a big, massive loss, isn't it? Because there's nowhere to go anymore. So you're overwhelmed by, my God, is this it? This dullness, this boringness, this excitement.
Yeah. Well,
the loss is very painful, because when you try to do something, there's no motivation to do anything.
No.
You know, I don't know whether I'm talking rubbish or
I don't think you're talking rubbish at all, no.
I've no idea, but there's a tremendous pain, because all of a sudden you are nobody and nothing with no purpose.
Yeah.
What's the point of even waking up, you know?
Yeah.
And then staring at a wall. I've never known staring at a wall can be so beautiful. I
know. Right, okay, so this, I love that, Marlo, because this is terrible. This is the worst that me can imagine. In fact, it's worse than I could ever imagine, because it is the loss of everything that was mine, everything. And of course, the greatest loss of all is myself, because I told myself that's who I was. That's what I am. I am myself. Now, and the loss of that is unimaginable to me. You know, it's worse than death. Non-existence to me, to the imaginary self, to what I believe and feel that I am, is worse than death, because of course in death I can tell stories of an afterlife, of reincarnation, of being a spirit, of becoming one with God. I can tell all kinds of lovely fairy tales about what will happen when this body dies, but that's not what I am. That's not who I am. I'm not that. You know, all those spiritual, beautiful fairy tales. But non-existence, And by non-existence, I mean nothingness, complete emptiness, absolute void is terror, is terrifying to me.
It is.
It's terrifying.
Terrifying
There is, but
there's-
the most wonderful thing is there is nothing to be terrified of.
I know, but when you've been in that conditioning for so long, and then all of a sudden there is nothing, you don't feel like doing anything.
No.
You don't know where to go. You
No.
don't know what to do.
No.
If an idea comes up, you think, well, what's the point in that? And
Yeah.
and so you become rigid, and there's nowhere to go, and it's awful. The pain of being there, the pain is quite powerful, but the pain is part of it, isn't it? So,
well, thing is, I would say that's the way you've described it is slightly different for how it is here. It's for me is there's so much less pain. The pain was I was the pain, but there is disappointment. That's what I would call it, massive disappointment, because it's not what I wanted. Because I wanted what I want, I wanted just the things that I wanted, and to get rid of all the stuff in life that I didn't want. That's what I was after.
yeah.
That's what I thought teachers must be speaking about. Get some nirvana. Now, this is not speaking about nirvana at all. This is, you don't get to not have anything. There's just everything. And everything is equally empty. So you don't even get to have it.
Yeah.
And yet there's a piece that that's really why I speak about this. Because I'm the one who was always disturbing the peace. And but the peace is empty. The emptiness and the peace are one and the same. There isn't
Thank you, Tim.
oh, thanks, Marla. That was beautiful. But yeah, this message is about complete loss. Yeah. And in that complete loss, nothing is lost, because you never were anyone. There never was anyone to lose anything. You never had anything. There was not you to have. All of the things that you said were you were just a story. And the story remains, but it's just not your story anymore. And the lightness, the relief. I mean, Marla says, the pain of it, but there's massive relief in not having to carry my life, not having to carry me. That's what this body did. This body carried me around, and I was a huge burden. And so, yeah, the loss of everything is the loss of nothing at all. There's really nothing to lose. And that is the greatest freedom that I could wish on any human being, the sense of there's nothing to lose. Whereas for me, of course, I always had so much to lose and so much to gain. So you lose the possibility of ever having anything to lose again. You lose that. But also, of course, this is the bit that me would never go for. You lose the possibility of ever gaining anything. There's nothing to be gained here at all. So that's when Marla was talking about the loss of motivation. And that seemingly takes some getting used to. And in my story, it did seem to take some getting used to, that emptiness, that there was nothing to be gained. So why should I do that? There's nothing to be gained from it. It's really obvious that there's nothing to be gained. So of course, all motivation is, what is there in it for me? And yet, seemingly in the story, there is a getting used to it. And it's easy. And life's very easy. And life's so beautiful, just as it is. Like Marla said, how could a blank wall be so beautiful? Well, it wouldn't be for me, would it? Of course not. And without you, there'll be beauty everywhere. There is beauty everywhere. But you're always judging it, aren't you? You're just comparing it with something more beautiful that you compare it with. Thanks, Marla.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim. Here I feel an innocence. It's Matt.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. I laugh my head off. It feels wild. It feels free. It feels
Yeah.
not serious at all.
No. Well,
And
yeah, the
yeah.
serious. You're the serious one. You know,
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
I am as the who takes life seriously,
Yeah,
Matthias?
I am.
I do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
my
yeah.
fucking life, and it's a serious business. You better believe it.
Yeah, you found
And if
me
you
out.
don't believe me, I'm soon going to tell you. Yeah,
Oh.
that's why. Yeah, you have to. This is only for those. This is only for those who have ears to hear it. It's not for everyone to hear. Because you say this in the wrong company. Well, it's not you that dies. It will be your face, probably. Yeah, because this is I have no idea why, but it just seems that there are only a few human beings that can hear this. I don't know why. I've no idea.
No.
Why?
I know.
I don't want to make you lot sound special, but you are the chosen ones.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you poor bastards. Don't thank me. But if you do get a taste of this, or in another analogy of way of looking at it, you could say if you get bitten by this, there's no. So this is like the most poisonous snake. If you get bitten by it, there is no antidote. You can't go and get vaccinated against it. There is no. Yeah, you're infected.
Yeah,
That's it.
I can feel that, and at the same time I can feel the remnants even now of this me who wants to be significant, who wants
of course. Well,
have this under control.
Yeah, well, that's the great loss. The loss that you could ever be special.
Mm.
Yeah, I know that you matter, because of course, above all, I want to matter. I want to make a difference, and yeah. You'll probably cry quite a lot with that. I'd be surprised if there aren't some tears. Maybe some weeping and wailing with that. I cried for weeks and weeks. Yeah, I did think at one point, I thought the tears would never end. I did think that. I know. And it's like mourning. It's mourning herself. It's mourning me, mourning myself. And it's worse than death, because it's not death, because I never was. So there was mourning for me. There never was a me. So in a way, it's even more. It's worse than death. This non-existence.
Oh, I want to burst out in laughter and cry at the same time.
Yeah, they can do that. Yes, quite a lot. I didn't know if I was laughing or crying. Yeah, what is it? They're very close together. They're much closer than, you know, we usually, we think of them as opposites. They're not really at all.
Mm.
Joy and sorrow are, yeah, well, you could say they're two sides of the same coin. Joy and sorrow are not really. They're just expressions of love.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh no, thanks, Matt. Well, there's a lot in the chat. I better have a look at it, had I? So what have we got here? Tom, do you mind? Do you want me to read your question? I'll read it out. So what to do to see that there is nowhere to get to? How to see that I already see that there is no way to get anywhere because there's nothing else other than what is here right now. If nothing is done, there's no seeing of this truth. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I guess it is the mind trying to get it. Yeah. Kind of getting on my nerves, this mind thing. Oh, yeah. I guess what I'm asking is how to end this freaking search. It drives me nuts that it starts again and again, the same thing every freaking time. Well, there you have the dilemma of the seeker. And so it starts again. Yeah. It doesn't really, but. So the illusion that I create for myself is that I am incomplete. And I go off searching in the world for completion. And there's a million different ways that I can try and find what will complete me, what will make me good enough, what will enable me to have some rest. Because if I become complete, if I become whole, I can rest. And what do I desire more than anything? I desire rest. I desire peace. And of course, that whole story that me tells to itself about incompletion, about lacking wholeness, about there's something wrong with me, that I'm not whole and I'm not complete, is a lie. It's such a convincing, I say lie, it's just not true. And I can say it with conviction because there is no, it's not that you are whole. There is no one to be whole. There isn't you to be whole. There isn't you to become complete. There isn't you to find what you're looking for. And of course, that's sad beyond imagination of sadness, that virtually the whole of humanity is spending the life that the human being is looking for something else in an imaginary future. somewhere that doesn't exist for someone who doesn't exist. I mean, it's funny, but it's immensely tragic. It's tragic, and it's only right that if this becomes obvious, you will laugh and cry in equal measure. I mean, it's hilarious, but it's tragic. And you'll cry. You will cry for yourself, of course. You would cry for yourself, but you would cry for all selves, for everyone on this tragic imaginary journey. With the only thing they have is that hope of completion, and it all rests on hope. And just these tiny fleeting moments of the illusion of becoming closer, of getting closer to fulfillment, to completion, to wholeness, when there is none. And there is none because this is already totally whole, absolutely complete. There is no more or less. There's nothing to lose or gain. This message makes what religion or spirituality says about any kind of it's so much more I don't know, it's so much more radical. There's nothing to be done, and in that, anything to be done. So just as Marla was saying, and she was saying how painful it was. Well, the pain of there's nothing to be done is a pain I'd wish for everyone, for all human beings. I'd wish that. Oh, take a rest. Yeah. Yeah, you're the one, you're the worker.
Hi again, Tim.
Hi, Halef.
Hi. I just thought about that. It's not exactly true that I'm getting more unpopular, because I'm just unpopular when I speak about there's no me. But in general, it seems to be less fear and less, less wanting to, be special or be liked, and actually then you get more liked, when you don't care so much about,
Yeah.
it's not so much filter.
Yeah. When I said unpopular, I meant with those who are closest to you, really.
Yeah.
Because you're probably not now turning up like you used to, and
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
they're not most. Yeah, generally people who aren't close to you, when you're relaxed and easy and lighter about life, and you're fun, but not to be in a relationship with Herlof. If you're in a relationship with another me, that me will have expectations of you. That's
right.
that's the unpopularity bit I'm talking about. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Thank you. And speaking about this, because it seems like, although it's a feeling of me here, really, but it seems like it's like a gradual, can you talk a little bit about, is either it's a me or it's not a me, but it seems like it's a bit of a gradual thing also.
Well, the thing is, I guess if you've heard stories of enlightenment or awakening or liberation, then the ones that are dramatic and really noticeable are the ones that seemingly in time, just story, but you know, you and me, is the famous one of Tony walking across the park, his awakening experience. So he was walking across the park, and then there was just walking across the park and no one walking across the park. And of course, if it's like that, and like me, no me, then of course the contrast between the two would be very dramatic, because in the story you're comparing before with after, with nothing in between, just for storytelling's sake. But then there's no reason why it, you know, that it could be incredibly slow and gradual. And if it's incredibly slow and gradual, what are you going to notice? You're not really going to notice anything, are you? Because if the difference from day to day is tiny, you're not actually going to notice. There's not any great difference, maybe a little difference. By the way, that's all nonsense, because essentially there is nothing lost. So there's no going from me to no me. There is no me, and there is no me. Oh, the language gets really quite silly. But yeah, but of course, me is waiting. If you're a seeker, you're waiting until you know that you're no me. And of course, there's nothing to know in that. Nothing to see. Well, there's nothing to see, no. And by the way, that nothing to see is exactly the same as when there is a sense of me. If you look for you never find yourself, do you? Just the same. Some famous teacher from India always was recommending to his students that they self-inquire by asking the question, who am I? Well, for me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did that. Of course I did. I tried everything. But if you ask that question, I mean, it's endless, isn't it? You can ask that question, you can come back with 1,000 different answers. But if you actually look for where you are, you know, if I was giving you a method, if I was giving you a method, then I'd say, where are you? Try and find yourself. Have a look. Pinpoint where that center is. I'm not asking you to do that. It'll take you a couple of seconds to see that there's nothing to find. There isn't anything to find. You find a lot of space. That's what you'll find. If you really look inside, what you'll find is empty. You've been running on empty. To use a car analogy, there's no one driving. It's one of those really super smart new cars that don't need a driver. That's what your body is. But of course you say, well, without me, I'd crash and burn. I'd be in a multiple pileup almost immediately. I'm the one who's running this show. I'm driving this. I'm important. Well, there you have the essence of self, that self-importance. By the way, a negative self-image is just as important to self, as long as I have a sense of that I'm special in some way. And that specialness can be, self is not interested in whether that's positive or negative, as long as it feels solid. That's the need that I have, to feel real. And it's not the, by the way, when I talk about real, I don't mean that the body's not real, that these words aren't real. I just mean you're not real. I'm not real. There's not a real me. That's it. The rest is real. Everything is just as real as everything else. It's no big deal. Real and unreal just become, again, it's just like a lot of people, because they've been in non-duality or they've been in spiritual, they want to know, so what's real and what's unreal? Well, everything's real and unreal. That's it. That's it. Apart from you and me. Boom. So is this real? Yes. It's a real glass. Oh, yeah, you go. It's not a big deal, but you know, is it really a glass? No. Is it real? Yeah, oh yeah, it's real. So what? You won't care. I'm telling you now, without you, you wouldn't give a shit about what's real and what's unreal. Everything just is as it is. And as it is, it's also, as well as being what it is completely empty. And that complete paradox, that complete contradiction won't bother you one iota. It will just be very obvious that's just how it is. And you won't care if anyone else agrees with you either. That's, how lovely is that? Yeah. Joey's driving. Hi, Joey.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Hi, mate. Yeah, good.
What we're talking about here really is the end of existence, really.
Yeah, well, you could say that, well, I don't know. If you could say the end of separate existence, and then there's just existence if you want.
Mm. But it's the end of the sense of I, the end of the sense of I am.
Yeah, and the but there, it is the end, but then there is nothing to end, so nothing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's shit, isn't it? So I'm
yeah, it's shit because
no, it is shit, Joey. It's shit because you're always waiting for it to happen, and it isn't going to.
Yeah, but in that from a point of view of being me or individual,
Yeah.
that's intellect. That's an understanding. But there's a sense of, for me, what's been lately happening is that there's more and more in a sense of like what we're talking about here is the sense of the end of I.
Yeah.
That I existence. That's that I exist. I'm here.
Absolutely. That is exactly what we're talking about, Joey.
Fuck me. Why am I here?
Well, the wonderful news, Joey, is you're not there. Now that is good news, isn't it?
Well, I guess so.
Oh dear. Yeah. Nice to see you, man.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes. Has anybody got a question or something they'd like to share before we finish?
Hey, Tim. Yeah, I've just got a comment really on what you said just there.
Yeah.
Hello?
Sorry, who is that?
Oh, hi, Tim. Sorry, it's Ben. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, just a comment on what you said. Actually, that really makes sense. You were talking about the cup being real. Yeah, it's real because presumably there isn't a cup to be real because the cup is just everything.
No, there is a cup. I just banged it on the table. If you get into that, I don't know what I just call it non-dual speak, really. If you get into there is no cup, that's the same, right? Saying there is no cup is exactly the same as saying there is no human being, there is no body, there is no body. Well, of course there's bodies. Bodies bloody everywhere. This hasn't got any, this isn't saying, all right, this isn't saying, okay, here we go. Okay. So this isn't saying that this isn't real. I mean, you can't get more real, can you? It's real. What he's saying is the realness of everything is exactly the same as everything else. And that realness is completely empty. And so the realness of things and the unrealness are not two. So you can forget about what's real and what's unreal because it's fucking everything equally. There aren't some things that are more real than others.
What about the self?
No, that's not a thing. Ha! That's not. Well, okay. You can't hold up yourself in front of your screen now, Ben, and show me yourself, can you? Can you? Can you do that? What you've taken a human being as yourself. I'm really enjoying the apple. You've taken a human being and the experience of whatever this is, this life, to be yours. You've taken ownership of it. The ownership is the illusion. The ownership is not real. The control is not real. The autonomy is not real. The free will is not real. The self is not real. But everything else, real and unreal, in equal measure. There actually is no real and unreal. All unreal. If I say real and unreal, I heard Tony say that 1,000 times. Tony Parsons. When I say it, all I'm saying is that there is no knowing reality. There isn't a reality to know as opposed to an unreality. It's not knowable. So not knowing and not needing to know is what real and unreal means. There is no knowing what's real and unreal. But that doesn't make this apple unreal. It doesn't make Ben what people call Ben, what other human beings call Ben, and what the human being called Ben calls that body. Doesn't make that unreal. The body's real. Thoughts are real. Real thoughts. Emotions are real. Imagination is real. It's real imagination. This is nothing appearing to be a real apple. There we go. That's it. That's as close as you're going to get. You can't get, I mean, don't, I used to get hung up far too much on real and unreal. You won't get near it. There's nowhere to get closer. And if you think about it, what a load of bollocks. We're talking about non-duality, and then all you want to do is separate out the real from the unreal. When we're talking about not two. I mean, that's funny, isn't it? So many seekers who come to non-duality want to separate this out into real and unreal. No, everything is real and unreal. There's no knowing the difference. And it doesn't matter at all. It's just this.
Well said.
Tim.
Forget about
sorry.
that. Who's that? Joe?
Yeah. So for me, what happens is sometimes, there's this flicking in and out of something. Feels like it's flicking in and out of something. Somebody's playing with the light switch, like on and off or on and off, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I can sometimes like look at my hands, and the way I can describe it is like it's like reflection on water. There's like almost like a two-dimensionality. There's no depth to it. There's no distance to it. Yeah. So
that's familiar to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. To me, when you guys talk, or when people talk about real and unreal, to me that's what it is. That it's like a mirage almost, or.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it just doesn't matter. It only matters to me because I'm interested in the real from the unreal. I just want to separate it all out, don't I? Because all I'm interested in is getting to grips with the real, and I want to discard the unreal. Well, there is no distinction.
Yeah.
It's all for me. It's all for me, and so that I will be special, and I'll have this special knowledge of what's real and unreal. I'll know the truth. I'm a seeker of truth, and I'll find it. There's nothing to find.
Yeah. Because it's like you want to, when that happens, then there's something comes in that wants to grasp that. It's like, oh, and then
of
it's
course.
almost like, oh, that's, and then
yeah,
almost immediately.
Yeah, that is how it is. Yeah, me wants to grasp it. I want to keep that. I've found a nugget. I've found a golden nugget of truth.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to stick it in my pocket and make sure that I tell everyone that I found it.
Well, I can't keep. I mean, it's impossible to keep it really, because the moment I grasp it, it's always done. It's gone.
Yes, it's already passed. It's gone.
Yeah.
Well, when you go to grab it, it's not there, is it?
No.
No. Whatever you try and hold of this, slips through your fingers, straight through.
Yeah.
Straight through. You're just left with nothing. It's not what you want, is it?
Well, actually, what it more feels like is what actually the grasping feels more like nothing rather than whatever it is trying to grasp. The grasping almost feels like a ghost or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's like you've got no hands, Joey. So you go to grasp, but the hands are not there to hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Joe. Well, that's time. Thanks very much for coming. I really enjoyed that tonight. There's been some great questions and some great contributions thanks to everybody who contributed. It's just so more alive. It's so more alive if it's not just, the same old shit coming out of my mouth. It's just much more alive if it's questions and it's engaging. Yeah, so thanks, Amala. That was lovely. and Joey and Ben and Tom and Matt and Herloff. It was, yeah, great. I might do it again.
Thank you, Tim.
I think I've enjoyed it so much, I might do it again. I think I might do it again on Monday. So,
Me too.
so hopefully, so next week I plan to do a meeting on Monday and Thursday. You're welcome to one or both. And the following week, I'm not sure because I'm having a little trip the following week, so I'll let you know. But there may be one or none. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, great to see everybody. Thanks very much for coming. If you'd like to make a contribution, all donations are very welcome at paypal.me/Tim Cliss. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Tim. Thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
You're
Great
welcome.
meeting.
Lovely to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Mm.